Long before humans saw animals as mere companions or beasts of burden, ancient civilizations viewed them as divine messengers, powerful symbols, and even gods walking among us. Picture the falcon soaring overhead, not just a bird, but the living embodiment of Horus watching over Egypt. Envision the serpent coiled in Mesopotamian temples, not as a threat, but as a guardian of sacred knowledge. These creatures weren't just part of the natural world, they were bridges to the supernatural, woven into myths that shaped empires and guided entire cultures. Why did a wolf nurse the founders of Rome? How could a humble scarab beetle symbolize the cycle of life and death? From the celestial cows of Hindu legends to the trickster coyotes of Native American tales, every civilization whispered secrets through the language of animals. Their stories still ripple through time, hidden in our art, our metaphors, and even the constellations above us. This isn't just about ancient beliefs, it's about unlocking the forgotten connections between humanity and the creatures that shared our world, revealing why these animal myths still captivate us thousands of years later. In the golden sands of ancient Egypt, animals weren't just companions, they were living vessels of the gods themselves. Take the humble house cat, for instance. To us today, it might seem ordinary, but to an Egyptian, that same feline carried the spirit of Bastet, the goddess who protected homes and brought fertility to the land. Harming one wasn't just a crime, it was sacrilege, punishable by death. And if a family's cat passed away, they would shave their eyebrows in mourning, a sign of deep reverence that shows just how sacred these creatures were. But cats were only the beginning. The scarab beetle, often dismissed as a simple insect, rolled balls of dung across the desert, mirroring the sun's journey across the sky. Egyptians saw this as the ultimate symbol of rebirth, tying it to Khepri, the god who pushed the sun into the sky each morning. Tiny amulets shaped like scarabs were placed over the hearts of the dead, ensuring safe passage into the afterlife. It's a startling reminder that divinity wasn't just found in grandeur, sometimes it crawled right beneath their feet. Then there's Anubis, the jackal-headed guide of the underworld. Why a jackal? These prowlers of the desert were often seen near burial sites, leading Egyptians to believe they guarded the threshold between life and death. Priests performing mummification rites even wore jackal masks, channeling Anubis' power to preserve the dead for eternity. And it wasn't just gods, thousands of real animals, from ibises to crocodiles, were mummified and offered as messengers to the divine. Temples overflowed with these sacred creatures, each one a living link to forces beyond human understanding. The deeper we look, the clearer it becomes. In ancient Egypt, the line between beast and deity didn't exist. Animals were gods, gods took animal forms, and through rituals, art, and even daily life, the people of the Nile lived in constant communion with them. It wasn't superstition, it was a profound belief that the divine walked among them, in the bodies of the creatures they cherished. While Egypt saw animals as divine incarnations, the ancient Greeks wove them into myths as symbols of raw power, wisdom, and even chaos. Take Zeus, king of the gods. His commanding presence wasn't complete without the golden eagle perched beside him. This wasn't just a regal accessory. The eagle carried thunderbolts in its talons, a living extension of Zeus's will, striking down those who defied the gods. And when Zeus needed to disguise himself, he didn't choose a human form. He became a bull, a swan, even an ant, proving that transformation itself was a divine trait. Then there's the Minotaur, the monstrous half-bull, half-man lurking in the labyrinth. More than just a terrifying foe, it symbolized the tension between civilization and primal instinct. Athens sent tributes into its maze, a grim reminder of humanity's struggle against the untamed forces within. Yet bulls weren't always destructive. Poseidon's magnificent horses, born from sea foam, embodied the ocean's dual nature, serene one moment, violent the next. But Greek myths didn't just celebrate strength, they also explored cunning. The fox, like Dolos, was the trickster god's companion, weaving deception into the world. Even the gods weren't immune. Dolos' schemes showed that intelligence could outmatch brute power, and when the fates needed a messenger, they chose owls, creatures associated with Athena herself. Their nocturnal wisdom made them ideal interpreters of destiny's whispers. Perhaps most captivating was the phoenix, the blazing bird that rose anew from its own ashes. Unlike other creatures, it didn't just symbolize renewal, it embodied it physically, a cycle of death and rebirth that gave hope to mortals. No wonder Greek oracles scrutinized animal omens so closely: a flock of ravens, the flight of eagles, even the entrails of sacrificed beasts. To them, the gods didn't just send signs, they spoke through the natural world. For the Greeks, animals weren't mere servants or symbols. They were active players in the drama of the divine, shaping fate as much as any god or hero. Their stories remind us that myth wasn't just about explaining the world, it was about confronting its mysteries, one creature at a time. Mesopotamia's mythical guardians at the towering gates of ancient Assyrian cities, colossal stone figures loomed, winged bulls with the watchful eyes of men. These were the lamassu, mythical sentinels carved to ward off evil and stand guard over kingdoms. Their curled beards and massive wings weren't just artistic flourishes, they embodied divine authority, a fusion of animal strength and human intellect meant to intimidate enemies and reassure the faithful. Step too close and you'd notice something uncanny. They had 5 legs designed to appear immovable from the front, yet striding forward from the side. A silent message, these protectors were always in motion, eternally vigilant. But the lamassu weren't the only creatures whispering secrets in Mesopotamian myths. Slithering through the world's oldest epic, the tale of Gilgamesh, was a serpent that changed fate itself. After Gilgamesh's grueling quest for immortality, the creature stole the plant of eternal youth, not out of malice, but as a reminder that some truths are reserved for the gods. Here, the snake wasn't just a tempter, it was a philosopher forcing humanity to confront the limits of ambition. Meanwhile, lions stalked the edges of royal reliefs, their manes carved into every palace wall. To the people of Mesopotamia, they weren't just beasts, they were avatars of Ishtar, goddess of war and love, whose dual nature mirrored the lion's ferocity and majesty. Even scorpions had their place in the cosmos, their stingers guarding sacred thresholds in myths. The Gertablulu, or scorpion men, stood at the gates of the sun god's mountain, their very bodies a warning. Some knowledge was too radiant for mortal eyes. What's striking is how these creatures weren't just symbols, they were active players in humanity's story. Omens were read in the flight of birds, the livers of sacrificed sheep, even the paths of crawling insects. To ignore an animal's message was to defy the gods themselves. In a world where the divine spoke through claws and wings, every creature held a fragment of the sacred. Mesopotamians didn't just worship animals, they listened to them. High above the battlefields of Norse legends, 2 dark shapes circled Odin's ravens, Hugin and Munin, whispering secrets into the ears of the Allfather himself. These weren't mere birds, they were extensions of the god's consciousness, their names meaning thought and memory. Every dawn, they took flight across the 9 realms, returning with news of mortal deeds, divine schemes, and hidden truths. For the Vikings, ravens weren't just scavengers, they were winged messengers of fate, their presence on the battlefield a sign that Odin was watching, weighing who would join him in Valhalla. But wisdom had its shadow. Lurking in the myths was Fenrir, the monstrous wolf whose chains snapped with each passing age. His very existence was an omen, a force of chaos that even the gods feared. When the dwarves forged unbreakable bonds to restrain him, Fenrir bit off the hand of the war god Tyr, proving that some forces could only be contained, never tamed. And in the final reckoning of Ragnarok, it was foretold he would break free, his jaws devouring the sun itself. Yet not all animals in Norse tales were omens of doom. The world tree Yggdrasil, axis of the cosmos, thrummed with life, its roots gnawed by a great serpent, its branches nibbled by 4 stags, each embodying the winds. Even the squirrel Ratatoska scurried up and down its trunk, stitching discord between the eagle at the top and the dragon below. This wasn't just fantasy, it was a living metaphor for nature's delicate balance, where every creature had a role in sustaining or unraveling the universe. And then there was Jörmungandr, the sea serpent so vast it encircled Midgard, biting its own tail. Its presence churned the oceans, a reminder that chaos and order were 2 sides of the same coin. When it finally released its tail at Ragnarok, the seas would rise, and gods and monsters would clash in their final dance. What's striking is how Norse myths refused to paint animals as mere servants or symbols. They were participants, shapers of destiny, allies of gods, and sometimes their executioners. A Viking might see a raven and feel the weight of Odin's gaze, or hear a wolf's howl and wonder, was it Fenrir testing his chains? In this world, every creature pulsed with meaning, threading the mundane and the divine into one unstoppable saga. The serpent's duality, creator and destroyer across cultures slithering through nearly every ancient civilization. Serpents hold a paradox in their coiled bodies, simultaneously worshipped as life-givers and feared as bringers of doom. This isn't coincidence, it's a reflection of humanity's deepest awe for a creature that defies simple understanding. Take the ouroboros, that ancient Egyptian symbol of a snake devouring its own tail. Far from a mere curiosity, it embodied the endless cycle of creation and destruction, time itself, looping forever. The Egyptians weren't alone in seeing serpents as architects of eternity. Across the ocean, the Aztecs revered Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent whose very name meant precious twin. Part bird, part snake, this god wasn't just a destroyer but a bringer of knowledge, wind, and even the arts. His shed skin symbolized renewal, much like the ouroboros, proving that cultures worlds apart arrived at eerily similar truths. Yet contrast this with the biblical serpent in Eden, whose whispered temptation supposedly doomed humanity. Here, the snake was cunning, a deceiver, but even then, its role wasn't one-dimensional. By offering forbidden knowledge, it mirrored Quetzalcoatl's gifts, blurring the line between villain and teacher. And what of healing? The Greeks entwined snakes around Asclepius's rod, a symbol still used in medicine today. Shedding their skin made them emblems of rebirth, while their venom could kill or cure, a duality ancient physicians couldn't ignore. Even in Hindu tradition, the serpent Vasuki churned the cosmic ocean to produce the nectar of immortality. Why this universal fascination? Perhaps because snakes move between worlds, sliding through earth, water, and sometimes even trees, making them natural bridges between the mundane and the divine. Their silent, unblinking gaze seems to hold secrets older than humanity itself. Whether as creators or destroyers, they remind us, wisdom and danger have always been intertwined. Wings of the divine, how birds bridged heaven and earth. Few creatures captured ancient imaginations like birds. Their ability to vanish into the sky made them the perfect envoys of the gods. In Egypt, the ibis wasn't just a wading bird. Its curved beak became the sacred pen of Thoth, scribe of the underworld, inscribing the fate of souls. Priests studied its flight patterns as divine script, believing each movement held answers from the afterlife. Meanwhile, in Greece, Athena's owl perched on her shoulder, its wide eyes mirroring the goddess's unblinking wisdom. Yet that same bird elsewhere sent chills down spines. Roman armies saw owls before battle as harbingers of doom, their hoots echoing like funeral dirges. The contrast reveals something profound. Birds weren't just messengers, they were mirrors. Cultures projected their deepest fears and highest hopes onto them. Take ravens, Odin's spies in Norse sagas, yet to Pacific Northwest tribes, they were trickster creators shaping the world with their cunning. Even their black feathers held duality, symbols of death in one land, of cosmic mystery in another. But why birds? Their flight defied human limits, making them natural liaisons to the divine. The Aztec god Quetzalcoatl wore a cloak of quetzal feathers, blending serpent and bird to embody the union of earth and sky. Hindu scriptures describe Garuda, the eagle king, as so mighty he could block the sun, a living bridge between mortals and Vishnu himself. Perhaps most haunting were the Stymphalian birds of Greek myth, winged creatures with bronze feathers, their very presence a plague. Yet even these monsters had purpose. Hercules' defeat of them showed humanity's struggle to tame nature's chaos. Birds didn't just carry messages, they were the message, their presence a language older than words. From the dove of peace to the thunderbird's storm-calling cry, one thread connects them all. Wings didn't just lift birds into the air, they lifted human eyes toward the heavens, reminding us that the divine was always listening, always watching just beyond the cloud. Across the ancient world, few animals commanded as much reverence as the bull, its massive shoulders carrying not just physical strength, but the weight of cosmic symbolism. In the sun-baked courtyards of Crete, young athletes somersaulted over charging bulls in a ritual known as torikathapsia. This wasn't mere spectacle, it was a dance with divinity. The Minoans saw the bull's raw power as a manifestation of their earth-shaking god, the Minotaur's lineage blending man and beast to symbolize humanity's tussle with primal forces. Leap across continents to the temples of India, where Nandi, the radiant white bull, sits eternally vigilant as Shiva's guardian. His bowed head isn't submission, it's devotion so profound that Hindus still touch his stone likeness for blessings before entering sacred spaces. Nandi embodies Dharma itself, steadfast, patient, and unyielding. The bull's association with fertility here intertwines with spiritual discipline, his humped back mirroring the mountains Shiva meditates upon. But the thread runs deeper. In Mesopotamia, the bull's horns crowned deities like Enlil, symbols of unassailable authority. Assyrian kings styled their beards in curled tiers to mimic the bull's sacred horns, fusing their rule with the animal's indomitable spirit. Even the zodiac's Taurus carries echoes of this legacy, a celestial bull whose stars were once thought to nourish the earth with spring rains. What made these cultures, separated by seas and millennia, align in their veneration? The answer lies in the bull's paradox, a creature of nurturing abundance and terrifying force. Its muscles plowed fields, ensuring survival, yet its charge could shatter stone walls. This duality made it the perfect metaphor for creation and destruction, kingship and sacrifice. From the blood-soaked arenas of Rome to the gold-adorned statues of Indus Valley seals, the bull wasn't just an animal, it was a language, spoken in the same visceral syllables by civilizations who'd never met. Wolves, between nurturer and nightmare, a lone howl pierces the night, a sound that sent shivers down spines in medieval Europe, yet stirred reverence among the Lakota tribes. No creature embodies humanity's divided soul quite like the wolf, its mythology split between fierce duality. In the heart of Rome's origin story, a she-wolf bends to nurse the abandoned twins Romulus and Remus, her rough tongue a stark contrast to the tenderness of the act. This wasn't just survival, it was destiny written in milk and fang. The wolf's den became a cradle for an empire, her image later cast in bronze as a symbol of Rome's fierce beginnings. Yet across the same continent, peasants whispered of wolves as witches' familiars, their eyes glowing with malice. The Norse feared Fenrir's apocalyptic jaws, while French folktales painted them as ravenous beasts lurking just beyond the firelight. How could one culture see salvation where another saw only terror? The answer lies in the land itself. For native peoples of the Great Plains, wolves weren't monsters but mentors. The Cheyenne told of a wolf who gifted humans the first bow and arrow, teaching them to hunt with precision. To the Nez Perce, wolf packs embodied loyalty and strategy. Their coordinated hunts mirrored in tribal war tactics. Tribes from the Pacific Northwest to the Southwest wove wolf spirits into coming-of-age rituals, believing their howls carried lessons about intuition and community. Unlike Europe's solitary predators, these wolves were kin, their voices threading through creation stories. Perhaps the starkest contrast lies in the aftermath of a hunt. While European nobles mounted wolf heads as trophies, the Nunamiut of Alaska buried wolf bones with ritual care, ensuring their spirits could run again in the next life. This divide wasn't just cultural, it was spiritual. Where one worldview saw a beast to dominate, the other saw a mirror, wildness not as something to conquer but to commune with. From the Capitoline wolf's unbroken gaze to the tribal drums that still honor wolf dances today, this animal's legacy is a testament to myth's power. The wolf doesn't change, only the stories we tell about it do. And in those stories, we reveal less about the creature itself than about our own fears, hopes, and the untamed territories of the human heart. The trickster's grin, chaos, cunning, and the creatures who defied order. Not all animal spirits demanded reverence. Some thrived on mischief, their laughter echoing through myths as they appended divine plans and human expectations. Among these clever disruptors, few were as audacious as Coyote, the shape-shifting troublemaker of Native American lore. While wolves symbolized loyalty and bears embodied strength, Coyote danced along the edges of morality, stealing fire for humans one moment and accidentally scattering the stars across the sky the next. His tales weren't just entertainment, they were lessons wrapped in chaos, teaching that wisdom often hides in folly and that even the mightiest can be humbled by wit. Venture north to Norse sagas and you'll find a kindred spirit in Loki. Though gods feared him, his tricks often took animal form. Slinking through stories as a sly fox or a darting salmon, he embodied the same restless cunning. When he cut off the goddess Sif's golden hair, his mischief forced the dwarves to craft treasures like Thor's hammer, proving that disorder could spark creation. The Norse didn't vilify Loki entirely. His chaos was a necessary counterbalance to Odin's order, a reminder that even the gods couldn't control every thread of fate. Then there's the Kitsune of Japan, foxes whose silken tails flickered with otherworldly intelligence. These weren't mere pranksters, they were guardians, lovers, and sometimes terrors. A kitsune might bless a farmer's field or lead a samurai astray in the mist, their motives as elusive as moonlight. With every added tale, some growing up to 9, their power deepened, blurring the line between spirit and mortal. What made them fascinating wasn't just their magic, but their moral ambiguity. They reflected life's unpredictability, where a single encounter could bring ruin or revelation. Why did cultures worldwide gravitate toward these tricksters? Perhaps because they personified life's unscripted moments, the stumbling blocks, the serendipitous wins, the truths hidden in jokes. A coyote's failed scheme might explain why deserts have mirages. Loki's escape as a salmon could symbolize the elusiveness of truth. These stories didn't just explain the world, they made space for humor and humility in the face of the unknown. In the end, trickster animals were more than scamps. They were the subconscious of mythology, whispering that not all wisdom comes from solemnity. Sometimes it takes a fox's grin, a raven's riddle, or coyote's howling laughter to remind us chaos isn't the enemy of order, it's its shadow, and without both, the world loses its balance. Dragons, East vs. West, symbols divided by fire and water in the mist-shrouded peaks of ancient China. dragons soared not as destroyers, but as life-givers, celestial beings who painted the skies with rain and cradled empires in their coiled might. Meanwhile, across the windswept castles of Europe, knights gripped their swords at the mere whisper of a dragon's approach, their scales gleaming like stolen gold. The same creature, woven into legends oceans apart, yet utterly unrecognizable to one another. Why did these mythologies split so dramatically? The answer lies not in the beasts themselves, but in the fears and aspirations of the cultures that imagined them. China's long dragons moved like flowing water, serpentine bodies embodying the yang principle of active, benevolent force. With no wings but the power to ride storms, they governed rivers, harvests, and even the throne itself. Emperors draped themselves in dragon motifs, claiming the mandate of heaven, their rule as natural as the rains these creatures commanded. Unlike the jagged, fire-scorched caves of Western tales, Chinese dragons dwelled in crystalline palaces beneath lakes or among clouds, their pearls symbolizing wisdom, not greed. Temples honored them as bridge builders between earth and sky, and farmers prayed to dragon kings to end droughts. To harm one was to invite cosmic imbalance. Now cross the world to medieval Europe, where dragons slithered into sagas as Satan's proxies, scaled, bat-winged, and breathing hellfire. St. George's legend wasn't just a hero's tale, it was Christendom's triumph over chaos. These monsters didn't nurture, they hoarded, their lairs piled with stolen treasure and the bones of the greedy. Yet even here, nuance flickered. Celtic myths spoke of dragons as emblems of sovereignty. The red dragon of Wales, for instance, prophesied victory. But mostly, they were foes to be vanquished, their deaths proving a knight's piety and valor. The chasm between these visions isn't arbitrary. Eastern dragons reflected harmony with nature's rhythms, where power meant stewardship, not domination. Their whiskered faces and fluid forms echoed calligraphy strokes art in motion. Western dragons, though, mirrored the era's battles, against paganism, against wilderness, against the unknown. Their leathery wings cast shadows over villages, just as feudal lords loomed over serfs. Yet beneath these contrasts hums a shared truth. Whether as bringers of rain or fire, dragons everywhere symbolized forces too vast for mortals to control, forces that demanded respect, ritual, or the swing of a sword. Their stories endure because they ask the same question. Do we face the world's great powers with awe or with steel? The answer, etched in scales and smoke, reveals more about us than the dragons themselves. Sacred giants, the elephant's divine role in Hindu and Buddhist lore, picture an animal so revered that merely touching its likeness can bring blessings, where its image adorns temple gates, royal insignias, and even modern tattoos. In the lush spiritual landscapes of India and Southeast Asia, the elephant isn't just a majestic creature, it's a living symbol of divine intellect and unshakable power. At the heart of this reverence stands Ganesha, the elephant-headed god whose cheerful grin hides cosmic wisdom. With a broken tusk clutched like a scribe's pen, he's said to have transcribed the Mahabharata, the world's longest epic, turning myth into written word. But why an elephant's head? Legend whispers that his father, Shiva, replaced his human head with an elephant's after a tragic accident, transforming loss into a testament of resilience. Today, Hindus invoke Ganesha before weddings, exams, or journeys, trusting his trunk to sweep obstacles aside. Yet elephants carry even deeper metaphors. Their immense size belies a delicate grace. Trunks that can uproot trees also pluck single blades of grass. This duality mirrors the balance Hinduism cherishes, strength tempered by gentleness, power paired with patience. Temple elephants in Kerala still parade in gold-threaded robes, their foreheads painted with sacred symbols as living bridges between devotees and the divine. Cross into Buddhism, and the elephant's symbolism shifts yet remains luminous. Here, the rare white elephant embodies the Buddha's own path to enlightenment. Ancient texts describe Queen Maya dreaming of a white elephant before giving birth to Prince Siddhartha, its purity foreshadowing his destiny. These alabaster giants weren't just royal mounts, they represented mindfulness, their measured footsteps echoing meditation's calm. In Thailand, to this day, spotting a white elephant is considered a celestial omen, a sign of prosperity and moral clarity. What unites these traditions is the elephant's extraordinary mind. Ancient scholars observed their long memories and tight-knit herds, seeing reflections of spiritual ideals, loyalty, wisdom, the interconnectedness of all life. Even their physical form held meaning: large ears to listen deeply, small eyes to focus inward. From Ganesha's playful dances to the Buddha's serene analogies, the elephant endures as more than an icon. It's a teacher, reminding us that true strength walks quietly, remembers fiercely, and overflows with compassion. Whiskers and witchcraft, the feline enigma across cultures beneath the flicker of medieval hearths. An unblinking shadow watched, supple paws stepping silently, eyes glowing like twin moons. Cats have always moved through human history with this same eerie grace, revered as deities in one land and feared as fiends in another. Their mythologies stretch far beyond Egypt's sacred temples, slinking into folklore where they shape-shifted, prophesied, and even cheated death. Take the Celtic cat Cid, a spectral black feline said to haunt the Scottish Highlands. Whispers claimed it was a fairy in disguise, stealing souls if it crossed a corpse before burial. Families would hold night-long vigils called Fail Fadalach, late wake, to keep these creatures at bay, their rituals proof of how deeply the fear ran. Yet in the same breath, Celts believed cats could see the unseen, their pupils widening as they peered into the spirit world. A farmer might leave milk out for them, hoping to win favor from the other world. Meanwhile, across the sea in Japan, the Bakeneko prowled. This wasn't just a house pet grown old, it was a shapeshifter, its tail splitting into two as it gained the power to walk upright, speak human tongues, and even curse enemies. Some tales painted them as vengeful spirits of wronged women. Others told of Bakeneko dancing with napkins on their heads in eerie midnight rituals. Yet in a twist, these same creatures were also cherished. Sailors kept Menki Neko figurines, the iconic beckoning cats, to lure prosperity, their raised paws symbolizing goodwill rather than malice. Then there's medieval Europe, where cats became tangled in the rising panic over witchcraft. Black felines were labeled familiars, accused of suckling witches' blood like demonic infants. Pope Gregory Roman IX Vox in Roma decree called them Satan's spawn, sparking massacres that may have worsened the Black Death by letting rats thrive. Yet paradox thrived too. Norse farmers left offerings for house cats thought to be Thor's companions, and Baltic sailors believed a cat's purr could calm storms. From Morocco's belief that a cat's breath healed sickness to Slavic myths of the sun god Ra's daughter taking feline form, one truth emerges: cats were never just animals. They were mirrors reflecting humanity's awe and terror of the unknown. Silent, self-possessed, and eternally inscrutable, they padded through our stories as both guardians and tricksters, proof that the line between magic and menace is as thin as a claw's edge. Steeds of the gods, when horses galloped beyond the sky, no creature carried humanity's dreams faster or farther than the horse. From the moment humans first mounted their backs, these animals became more than companions. They were extensions of human will, carrying kings into battle, pulling the sun across the sky, and even leaping into the stars. Take Pegasus, the winged stallion born from Medusa's blood in Greek myth. His snowy wings didn't just symbolize speed, they embodied the untamable spirit of inspiration itself. When the hero Bellerophon tamed him with a golden bridle forged by Athena, their flight to slay the chimera was more than a quest, it was proof that imagination could conquer even monsters. Yet Pegasus' story holds a warning. When Bellerophon grew arrogant, attempting to ride to Mount Olympus, Zeus sent a gadfly to sting the stallion, casting the rider back to earth. The message, even the most divine gifts demand humility. Meanwhile, in the frozen north, Odin's eight-legged Sleipnir tore through the realms of Norse myth like a storm. His extra legs weren't just for show. They moved him between worlds, carrying the Allfather to the land of the dead or across the Rainbow Bridge Bifrost. Sleipnir wasn't merely transportation. He was a key to cosmic secrets faster than light or thought. His birth was just as mythical. Loki, the trickster, shape-shifted into a mare to distract a giant stallion, later giving birth to Odin's steed. Even in his origins, Sleipnir blurred boundaries, part god, part beast, part mischief. But mythical horses weren't confined to Olympus or Asgard. On the Mongolian steppes, herds were considered so sacred that warriors whispered prayers into their manes before battle. The Turkic peoples believed a horse's spirit could guide the dead to the afterlife, its hooves pounding a path through the underworld. Rome's emperors paraded with white stallions draped in purple, their very presence declaring dominance over land and legend alike. What unites these stories is the horse's duality, bridging the mundane and the miraculous. They were partners in labor, yet also divine messengers, symbols of conquest, yet also fragile, fleeting life. Think of the Trojan horse's deception. Whether with wings, extra legs, or simply unmatched speed, horses in myth didn't just carry riders. They carried humanity's hopes, fears, and unspoken yearning for the horizon. And in their thunderous gallop, we still hear an echo of that ancient truth. To ride a horse was, for a moment, to touch the divine. Bears, the gentle giants and savage protectors of myth beneath the dense canopy of ancient forests. One creature commanded both awe and reverence, its massive form symbolizing a paradox that captivated cultures across continents. The bear wasn't just an animal, it was a mirror reflecting humanity's deepest contradictions: tenderness and fury, solitude and kinship, the healer's touch and the warrior's wrath. In the misty highlands of Greece, young girls danced in rituals to Artemis Broronia, their saffron robes swirling as they imitated the movements of bears. The goddess herself once took the form of a bear, according to legend, shielding the nymph Callisto from Hera's jealousy. To the Greeks, the bear embodied Artemis' dual nature, both protector and hunter, nurturing yet untamable. Her priestesses, known as Arctoi, little bears, underwent rites of passage in sacred caves, emerging with the strength and independence the animal symbolized. Cross the ocean to the cedar-scented villages of the Pacific Northwest, and the bear's role shifts, but its sacredness only deepens. For the Tlingit and Haida peoples, the bear was Zeus, a powerful totem representing wisdom, healing, and familial bonds. Shamans wore bear claws to channel its spirit, believing its hibernation a seasonal retreat into the earth held secrets of rebirth. When a bear emerged from its den in spring, tribes saw it as a living lesson in resilience, a reminder that introspection could lead to renewal. Even its plants, like wild ginger, were harvested with prayers of gratitude, as if the forest itself was the bear's pharmacy. Yet in Norse sagas, the bear's ferocity took center stage. Berserkers, those legendary Viking warriors, cloaked themselves in bear pelts before battle, howling and gnawing their shields in a trance-like fury. They believed the bear's spirit possessed them, granting inhuman strength but at a cost. To go berserk wasn't just a phrase, it was a surrender to primal chaos, a dance on the knife's edge between man and beast. What threads these disparate myths together? The bear's unique biology offers clues. Unlike most predators, it stands on two legs, mirroring human posture. Its omnivorous diet, berries and salmon, honey and roots, echoes our own adaptability. And then there's the mother bear, fiercely defensive of her cubs, yet famously gentle with them. From Japan's Ainu people, who saw bears as gods visiting the mortal world, to Celtic legends where bears guided souls to the afterlife, this animal's duality resonated universally. Perhaps that's why bear myths endure. They don't just tell us about nature, they tell us about ourselves. In a world that demands both strength and vulnerability, the bear stands as an ancient reminder. To be powerful isn't to reject tenderness, but to hold both in the same mighty grasp. Beneath the surface, how fish and aquatic creatures shaped creation myths before the first cities rose or words were written. Humanity's stories began at the water's edge. There, in the shimmering depths, swam creatures that didn't just inhabit the world, they built it. Take Ons, the Mesopotamian fish god who emerged from the Persian Gulf each dawn, his scaly body glistening as he taught humans law, science, and art before slipping back into the waves at dusk. This wasn't just a deity, he was civilization itself, rising from the primal sea like a living bridge between chaos and order. But why fish? Their endless fertility made them universal symbols of abundance, like the Hindu Matsya, the first avatar of Vishnu, who took the form of a giant fish to rescue sacred knowledge from a cosmic flood. Clutching a manuscript in its teeth, this divine fish didn't just save humanity. It carried wisdom through destruction, proving that life's deepest truths often swim in the darkest waters. Now dive into the Maori legend of Pakia, the ancestor who rode a whale to safety after his brothers drowned him at sea. Here, the whale wasn't just a rescuer, it was a metamorphosis of grief into survival, its massive body a vessel for rebirth. For coastal cultures worldwide, aquatic beings held this dual role, both threat and salvation. The Inuit spoke of Sedna, whose severed fingers became seals and whales, linking sacrifice to sustenance. Even the Bible's Jonah, swallowed by a great fish, emerged transformed, his ordeal mirroring the universal theme of submersion as a path to renewal. What's fascinating is how these myths mirror human psychology. Water represents the subconscious unknown, shifting, full of hidden currents. Fish, moving effortlessly through this realm, became guides to mysteries beyond land-bound logic. In West Africa, the Fon people revered the piscine deity Jibadu, who swam through dreamscapes delivering prophecies. Chinese legends told of longmen, carp that leaped waterfalls to become dragons, a metaphor for perseverance breaching the impossible. From the Mesopotamian priests who wore fish skin robes to the Celtic salmon of wisdom that ate sacred hazelnuts, one thread connects them all. Aquatic creatures weren't just part of creation myths, they were co-creators. Silent, fluid, and fathomless, they remind us that every origin story begins with the same eternal whisper. In the beginning, there was water, and from its depths, life and legend emerged. Faithful beyond the grave, the sacred dogs who walked with souls while cats ruled Egyptian temples. Another creature stood guard where the living dared not tread, the jackal-headed Anubis, his lean silhouette pressed against tomb walls, weighing hearts against the feather of truth. But he wasn't alone in this sacred duty. Beneath the sands of Egypt, real dogs were buried with their owners, their collars etched with pleas, "Do not harm my soul." These weren't just pets, they were psychopomps, guides who knew the turns of the afterlife's labyrinth. Their keen noses could sniff out deceit, their loyalty outlasting even death. Now leap across the ocean to the fiery deserts of Mesoamerica, where Xolotl, the Aztec dog god with backward feet, waited at twilight. His twisted limbs mirrored the sun's perilous journey through Mictlan, the underworld. Every evening, he'd lope alongside the dying star, warding off demons with bared teeth. Aztecs buried clay dog figurines with the dead, believing these spirit companions would carry them across the 9 rivers of darkness. Some even painted their dogs' bodies with sacred blue before sacrifice, ensuring the gods would recognize their divine role. But perhaps the most haunting bond unfolded in Celtic lore, where spectral hounds like CW Circumflex and Ann roamed misty glens. Their howls weren't warnings of death, they were invitations. Warriors who heard them knew the wild hunt was near, its ghostly riders gathering souls for the other world. Yet these weren't fearsome beasts, they were selective, ignoring the unworthy and guiding only those ready to pass. Even King Arthur's legendary hound, Cafall, left paw prints in stone, a testament to the supernatural weight they carried. So why did cultures separated by continents and centuries entrust dogs with souls? The answer lies in what they witnessed every day: a dog's unwavering gaze, its refusal to abandon its human even in decay. Egyptians saw them scavenging at desert tombs, yet never fleeing, proof they could navigate both realms. Aztecs noted how dogs licked wounds clean, as if healing the veil between worlds. And Celts marveled at their ability to track scents invisible to humans, a metaphor for sniffing out destiny itself. From the jackals of Duat to the ghostly packs of Wales, one truth endures: dogs didn't just accompany us in life. They were the only creatures we trusted to find us in the dark. Bees, the divine hum that shaped civilizations amidst the olive groves of ancient Greece, a sound thrummed through the air, not the clatter of shields or the murmur of philosophers, but the steady hum of bees. To the people of Delphi, these weren't just insects, they were winged whispers from Apollo himself. The gods' priestesses, the Pythias, were said to inhale vapors from a sacred spring where bees nested, their honeyed sweetness mingling with prophecies. Why bees? Because their hives mirrored the cosmos, ordered, harmonious, and humming with unseen intelligence. Journey to the jungles of the Maya, and you'd find stingless bees held in similar reverence. The god Amusan Cab descended as a bee to teach humans the art of beekeeping, his gift so precious that honey became currency and sacrament. Mayan kings drank balshay, a fermented honey brew, to commune with spirits, while hollow logs housing hives were placed in temples like living altars. Here, bees weren't just producers, they were tiny priests turning flowers into gold under the watch of the gods. But the hive's true magic lay in its structure. To the Greeks, it was a model of eunomia, perfect governance. Worker bees symbolized selflessness, drones represented necessary indulgence, and the queen. She wasn't a tyrant, but the heart of a collective organism. Philosophers like Aristotle marveled at their genderless labor. They thought worker bees were male, seeing in them a blueprint for human society. Even Plato imagined souls returning as bees, their industriousness a reward for virtuous lives. In Egypt, bees sprang from the tears of Ra, their wax used to seal royal decrees and their honey to preserve the dead. Norse myths told of mead of poetry, a golden elixir brewed from the saliva of wise gods and carried by bees. Drinking it granted the power of skalds. Everywhere, bees bridged realms. Their hives stood at the crossroads of life and death, fertility and wisdom, chaos and order. What made these tiny creatures loom so large in myth? Perhaps because their work was alchemy, turning sunlight into sweetness, pollen into prophecy. A hive wasn't just a home, it was a temple, a school, a kingdom in miniature. And when ancient people listened to their hum, they heard more than insects. They heard the whisper of the divine, buzzing just beneath the surface of the everyday. Antlers reaching heavenward, the deer's sacred path through ancient worlds in the hush of a moonlit grove, where shadows sway like whispers. Few sights stirred the soul like a stag emerging from the mist, his crown of antlers branching upward like nature's own cathedral. To the ancient Greeks, this was no ordinary beast. It was the golden-horned stag of Artemis, so swift its hooves barely touched the earth, so sacred that capturing it was one of Hercules' impossible labors. But why this reverence? The answer lies in those antlers, shed and regrown each year, a cycle that mirrored the moon's phases and the eternal dance of death and rebirth. For hunter-gatherers, tracking deer wasn't just survival. It was a pilgrimage, following an animal that seemed to navigate both the physical and spiritual realms with equal ease. Cross into the emerald forests of Celtic Europe, and the deer's mysticism deepens. Here, Cernunnos, the horned god, sits cross-legged beneath ancient oaks, his antlers tangled with vines and serpents. More than a deity, he was a liminal figure guardian of the wild hunt, yet also a gentle patron of abundance. His image adorned coins and cauldrons, a reminder that the forest offered both nourishment and danger. Shamans donned deer skulls in rituals, believing the antlers' branching paths could channel celestial energy. Each tine was a ladder, allowing them to climb between worlds during trances, gathering wisdom from ancestors or bargaining with spirits for healing rains. But the deer's spiritual footprints stretch further. In Siberian shamanism, reindeer carried souls to the upper world, their antlers scraping the stars as they ascended. The Sami people wove drums with their images, using the rhythmic beat to mirror the stag's heartbeat, a metronome guiding journeys beyond the veil. Even in Japan, the Shika deer of Nara were considered divine messengers, their bows to visitors echoing centuries of sacred symbiosis. What unites these beliefs is the deer's silent eloquence. Their alert ears catch the unseen, their sudden leaps embody the forest's hidden pulse. Unlike predators, they don't dominate the wild, they move through it with an almost ethereal awareness, making them perfect guides for those seeking to touch the numinous. Whether in Artemis's sacred groves or the smoke-filled tents of shamans, the deer wasn't just a symbol of the wild. It was the wild itself, made flesh and bone, teaching humanity to listen for the sacred in every rustle of leaves. Hybrid creatures, when myth-stitched beasts and dreams together imagine standing before a creature with the body of a lion, the wings of an eagle, and the piercing gaze of something utterly otherworldly. This wasn't just fantasy to the ancients, it was a coded message about the boundaries of power, knowledge, and the human spirit itself. From the griffin's golden hordes to the sphinx's deadly riddles, hybrid beings weren't random mashups. They were mirrors reflecting humanity's deepest yearnings and fears. Take the griffin, that majestic fusion of lion and eagle. To the Scythians roaming the steppes, it wasn't merely a myth, it was the ultimate guardian, its claws clasping treasures beyond mortal reach. Why these two animals? The lion ruled the earth, the eagle conquered the sky. Together, they became unstoppable sentinels, patrolling the edges of the known world where gold veins glittered like stolen sunlight. Greek traders whispered that griffins hoarded gems in mountain nests, their very existence a defiant line between human ambition and divine wealth. Even in medieval Europe, they carved griffins into cathedral walls, their dual nature symbolizing Christ's dominion over heaven and earth. Then there's the Sphinx crouching at Thebes with a woman's face and a lion's body. Her famous riddle, what walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon, and 3 in the evening, wasn't just a brain teaser, it was a lesson in mortality, her hybrid form embodying the paradox of human existence, part beastly instinct, part divine intellect. Answer wrongly and her claws tore you apart. Answer rightly and she'd leap to her death, as if her purpose was fulfilled the moment a mortal grasped the truth. In Egypt, the great Sphinx of Giza wore a pharaoh's head, its silent stare warning trespassers that wisdom and sovereignty were 2 sides of the same coin. But perhaps no hybrid unnerved the Greeks quite like centaurs, those volatile blends of man and horse, their human torsos rising from equine bodies like chaos breaking free of restraint. Most were drunken brawlers like the ones who shattered Perithous' wedding, but Chiron stood apart. A healer, a mentor to heroes, his hooves tread gently as he taught Achilles medicine and Hercules music. Here was the tension laid bare, civilization and wildness grafted onto a single being. The centaur's very anatomy asked, can reason tame instinct, or will the beast always kick free? What unites these creatures isn't just their spliced bodies, it's the questions they forced humanity to confront. Griffins guarded the line between greed and reverence. Sphinxes tested whether intellect could outmatch primal force. Centaurs exposed the fragile border between scholar and savage. In stitching together animal and human, the ancients weren't playing mad scientists. They were mapping the uncharted territory within themselves where the divine, the bestial, and the mortal collide. Look closer at the art they left behind: Assyrian reliefs, Greek vases, Egyptian tomb paintings. Every griffin's feather, every sphinx's smirk, every centaur's arrow carries the same whisper: you are more and less than you think. Hybrids didn't just defy nature's rules. They dared us to wonder which parts of ourselves we'd stitch together next. Celestial creatures, when animals charted our fate, look up at the night sky, and you'll find more than stars, entire constellations shaped like scorpions, rams, and even a great bear lumbering across the heavens. But long before these images glittered above us, animals were already mapping human destiny here on Earth. Take the Chinese zodiac, where your birth year isn't just a date. It's a stamp of the rat's cunning, the dragon's fire, or the ox's steadfast strength. Why these 12 legend whispers of a race orchestrated by the Jade Emperor, where the rat hitched a ride on the ox's back, leaping ahead at the last moment to claim first place. Yet beneath the folklore lies something deeper, a mirror of ancient China's agrarian roots. The zodiac's animals weren't random. They were markers of seasons, lunar cycles, and the rhythm of planting and harvest. The diligent ox plowed spring fields, the industrious rooster heralded dawn, and the boar's autumn fattening promised winter sustenance. This wasn't just astrology, it was a celestial almanac written in the language of beasts. Now spin the globe to the Mediterranean, where Western zodiac signs like Taurus the bull or Leo the lion ruled not just stars but personalities. Here, the connection to agriculture is equally profound. Taurus, fixed in the sky during April's planting frenzy, embodied earthy endurance. Leo's midsummer rain mirrored the lion's association with the scorching sun, fitting for a sign said to blaze with charisma. Even Pisces, those twin fish swimming through February storms, echoed the month when seas churned and nets came up empty. But the Greeks took it further, weaving these creatures into hero myths. Aries wasn't just a ram, it was the golden fleece Jason sought, its wool a symbol of kingship. Scorpio, the creature sent by Artemis to slay Orion, forever chasing him across the cosmos. What's fascinating is how both systems, separated by continents, saw animal traits as celestial blueprints. A Chinese child born in the year of the tiger inherits bravery. A Western Cancer, like the crab, carries tenacity beneath a soft shell. These weren't whimsical metaphors, they anchored people to nature's cycles, offering comfort that even in chaos, the rabbit's luck or the eagle's vision might guide them. Today, we might check horoscopes for fun, but to the ancients, these creatures were compasses pointing the way through life's untamed wilderness, one paw print at a time. Yet the contrasts are just as revealing. Where the Chinese zodiac operates in 12-year cycles tied to lunar years, Western astrology plots 12 months along the sun's path. One rooted in communal timekeeping, the other in individual birth charts. But both whisper the same truth: we've always looked to animals not just to explain the world, but to navigate it. Whether you're a fiery dragon or a meticulous Virgo, the stars insist you're part of a much older story, one written in fur, scales, and feathers long before humans learned to read the sky. Rituals and sacrifices, when reverence turned to blood beneath the glittering feathers and sacred statues, a darker truth pulsed in the ancient world, one where worship wasn't always gentle. For some civilizations, honoring animals meant not just feeding or adoring them, but offering them back to the gods in the most visceral way imaginable. Consider the Aztecs, who saw jaguars as earthly shadows of Tezcatlipoca, the god of night and sorcery. These magnificent cats weren't just symbols, they were living vessels of divine power. Captured warriors, draped in jaguar pelts, would fight in ritual battles not for victory, but for the privilege of being sacrificed atop pyramids. Their blood, mingling with the animal's spirit, was believed to nourish the sun itself, staving off cosmic collapse. Eagles, too, met similar fates, their hearts torn out as offerings to Huitzilopochtli, the sun god, their feathers adorning headdresses like grim trophies of devotion. Cross the ocean to Rome, where the Taurobolium stained the earth crimson. In this chilling rite, a priest would stand beneath a wooden grate as a bull was slaughtered above him, drenching him in its blood. To onlookers, this wasn't mere brutality, it was rebirth. The bull's death washed away sins, its life force transferring to the initiate in a grotesque baptism. Even the Mithraic cults, rivals to early Christianity, centered their mysteries around slaying a sacred bull, its blood promising renewal to those anointed in it. Why such extremes? These acts weren't senseless violence, they were desperate bargains. When crops failed or empires trembled, offering the strongest, most sacred creatures was a plea for balance. A jaguar's strength, an eagle's flight, a bull's virility, these weren't just lost, they were returned, amplified by ritual to bridge the mortal and divine. Yet the line between reverence and cruelty often blurred. Carthaginians sacrificed infants to Baal Hammon, placing them in the arms of a bronze bull statue that roasted them alive, a practice so horrifying even their enemies recoiled. The Celts, too, drowned prized horses in bogs as gifts to the underworld, their bridles left to rust as silent witnesses. What's chilling isn't just the acts themselves, but their twisted logic. The more precious the life, the greater the gift. Animals, exalted as divine, became the ultimate currency, paid in blood to buy humanity more time under the gods' gaze. Today, we might shudder at these practices, but they reveal an uncomfortable truth. In the shadows of awe, fear has always lurked, whispering that even the sacred must sometimes bleed. Modern echoes, how ancient animal myths shape our world today. That same eagle Zeus, once wielded as a divine messenger, now soars on the back of the American dollar. The dragon that brought rain to Chinese emperors flames across blockbuster screens. Ancient myths didn't vanish, they shape-shifted, slipping into our stories, symbols, and even sneaker logos with startling persistence. Consider the Patronus charms from Harry Potter, spiritual guardians taking the form of stags, otters, or phoenixes. These aren't random choices. Rowling mind mythic archetypes, the stag's nobility echoing Celtic Cernunnos, the phoenix's rebirth a direct descendant of Greek and Egyptian lore. Even Voldemort's snake tongue and serpentine allies tie back to millennia of serpent as trickster tales, from Mesopotamia to the Amazon. What makes these modern myths resonate? They tap into a primal lexicon, a shared language of animal symbolism our ancestors coded into us. Superheroes are just as steeped in this legacy. Black Panther's vibranium claws extend a tradition of big cats as royalty, akin to Egypt's lion-headed Sekhmet or India's tiger riding Durga. Spider-Man's arachnid agility nods to Anansi, the West African spider god whose webs wove wisdom and mischief. These heroes work because their totems aren't just cool designs. They're modern masks for ancient powers, repackaged for audiences who still instinctively understand their meaning. Nations and brands lean on the same symbolism with calculated precision. The bald eagle wasn't chosen for the U.S. seal because it's a good fisher. It was a deliberate echo of Rome's imperial eagles and Zeus's authority. China's dragon, unlike Europe's fire breathers, channels benevolent control over water and harvest, a direct line to imperial myth. Even sports teams like the Chicago Bulls or Jacksonville Jaguars bank on the raw, untamed energy these animals represented to civilization centuries ago. Why does this symbolism endure? Because animals bypass logic and speak to something deeper, our collective memory. A wolf on a Nordic flag stirs the same awe Fenrir did in Viking sagas. A lion on a luxury car still radiates the kingship it symbolized on Babylonian gates. These aren't just logos or mascots, they're shorthand for traits we've admired or feared for millennia, condensed into a single, potent image. Next time you see a dragon in a video game or an owl on a university crest, remember, you're not just looking at a cool design. You're glimpsing the unbroken thread between ancient campfires and modern screens, where animals still carry the weight of our myths, no translation needed. From the golden wings of Egyptian falcons to the thunderous hooves of Norse steeds, these ancient myths reveal something startling. We've never truly seen animals as mere beasts. They were our first teachers, our protectors, and sometimes our challengers, reflecting back the best and wildest parts of ourselves. The wolf who nurtured Rome's founders wasn't just a nursemaid, she was a symbol of ferocity tempered by care. The scarab beetle rolling dung across the desert wasn't an insect, it was the sun itself, reborn each dawn. What's haunting is how these stories still pulse beneath the surface of our modern world. The same lion that roared on Mesopotamian temple walls now growls from corporate logos, its power undimmed by millennia. The owl Athena, once held as an emblem of wisdom, still watches from university crests, its silent gaze a bridge between ancient academies and today's lecture halls. These creatures weren't just characters in forgotten tales, they became the language of human ambition, fear, and wonder, spoken across time in feathers, fur, and scales. So here's the invitation. Next time you spot a raven circling or a cat blinking lazily in the sun, pause. Consider the myths that once clung to them like shadows. Whether it's the loyalty of dogs guiding souls or the cunning of foxes outwitting gods, these stories remind us that the line between animal and human has always been thinner than we think. Which of these ancient bonds speaks to you? Is it the resilience of the phoenix, the wisdom of the serpent, or something else entirely? Drop your favorite in the comments. We're endlessly fascinated by the creatures that still walk through our dreams. And if you've enjoyed this dive into the past, hit subscribe to keep uncovering the secrets buried in history's wild heart. Until next time, keep looking closer. The myths aren't gone, they're just waiting for you to listen.